In this video, I'll demonstrate how to make a lemon drizzle cake following the creaming method. So to start with, the first thing you need to do is preheat your oven to 180 degrees. Make sure you've got a mixer on your table, a mixing bowl, a beater and a guard for your mixer. So the ingredients you will have are butter, egg, baking powder, sugar and soft flour. So if you don't have any shell egg, you can use liquid egg. So one shell egg weighs 50 grams, so times that by 8 and you'll have 400 grams of liquid egg. So to start with, take your mixer, put in your cubed room temperature butter and your sugar. So you need to beat your sugar and your butter together until it's nice, light and fluffy. So pop your mixer onto the bowl onto the mixer, press that down, make sure it's clipped on the sides, put your beater in, make sure it's all clipped in, your guard on, push up and start it on speed 1. So you want your butter and your sugar to be nice, light and fluffy. So keep that mixing, turn it on to speed 2. While that's mixing, you can sieve your flour, baking powder together. Take a bowl of flour and baking powder. So halfway through mixing, you will need to take your butter and sugar mix and scrape it down. So take it off the mixer and scrape it down. Make sure there's no lumps of butter. And then pop it back onto the mixer and keep it mixing until it's light and fluffy. Pop that back on the mix, and then while it's mixing, sieve together your flour and your baking powder. And baking powder together 3 times. Once you've mixed your butter and sugar together, make sure you scrape down the bowl. Make sure there's no lumps of fat at the bottom. And then we want to add in the egg. So your egg needs to be room temperature. This ensures that your mix doesn't curdle. Should be light and fluffy. Scrape it down and then we need to start adding in the egg. Put it back onto the mixer. Put your beater on. Start it off at speed 1, so make sure the guard's on correctly. Gradually add in the egg on speed 1. Gradually add in the egg and leave it on mix 1. If your butter and your eggs are too cold, then this is when it starts to curdle. At this stage, you want to start adding in a little bit of flour and then continue to add in the egg. Batter off the mixer, scrape it down, so your final batter should look like this. Okay, now you've mixed in the flour, so take your scales. You will need a loaf case, just like this, a loaf tin, place that onto your scales. This is ready. You will need to scale it off at 320 grams. So when you come to scaling it off, pop your loaf tin onto the scales, tear your scales. So once you've scaled them all off, you should have 5 in total. You need to bake these at 180 degrees for 40 minutes. Lemon drizzle cake should now be ready to go into the oven. So make sure your oven is set to 180 degrees and set your timer to 40 minutes. Open up your oven. Your lemon drizzle cakes will now bake for 40 minutes at 180. So make sure you've got your timer on, press the green button to start, and that will go off in 40 minutes. While you're waiting for the cake to bake, you can make the lemon drizzle to go on top. So you will need juice of 2 lemons and 85 grams of sugar. You'll also need an induction hob. So to work this, just press the on button, put the temperature to 1500, place the pan onto the induction hob, and when it starts to boil, that's when it will be ready. It will start to dissolve, so once it starts to boil, take it off the heat and leave that to cool down. The lemon drizzle cakes have now been baking for 48 minutes. So to check to see whether they're baked, place a knife into the cake. If the knife comes out clean, then the cake is baked. While the cakes are still hot, pour over the lemon sugar mixture. And allow the cakes to cool. Once your cakes have cooled down slightly, tip them out of the tin and place them onto a cooling rack to cool down.